but my association with computers is also an aspect of my working life. I can say this, that in my working life, I have seen the growth and evolution of the computer revolution, not only in India but in the world. In the late 1950s or early 1960s, when I was a student, graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania, we used to work with punch cards. We used to carry a load of them to the UNIVAC machine, which was at the basement of the Moore School of Engineering at the University of Pennsylvania. As many of you may know, that UNIVAC machine was one of the first machines that was the large size machine that was created, but it occupied so much space that only a basement can fit in. Therefore, it was there. But then, as you all know, the interesting thing, I do not know how many of you have used the punch cards, but as you know that when you use the punch cards, and if you make one mistake in one of the cards, then the machine will throw away the whole thing. And you will come back and find out where the mistake was, and then put them back. That is how we learned. In fact, there was a time slightly earlier to that where you have to do all your manipulations by using that small sized machine which you have to rotate with your right hand in order to get the numbers. Concomitant. But from that time onwards, the computer revolution has overtaken this world. And I have already spoken about it a little while ago, therefore I don't want to repeat. But the fact remains, the computers have shrunk in size, but grown in potential. They have moved from, as I said, the desolate basements to the desktops, the elegant desktops. And now they are being handled by everybody. And I am amazed, I must tell you, when I see my granddaughter, who is only 11 years, manipulating the iPad and the computers in a manner in which I cannot do it. And therefore the generation has overtaken us in terms of and they are not able to recall a period when such a thing did not exist. So that is the growth that has happened, but as we discussed a little earlier, it has its own drawbacks, or not drawbacks, it has certain elements which need to be taken care of, and that is why cyber security has become extremely important. The human mind is very innovative, and it is innovative even on the criminal side. So the cyberspace has also provided yet another area in which the criminal mind can work, and therefore we really need to combat that. My association with computers also resumed in the mid-1980s when the computerization of the banking industry was launched. I must say that it was not an easy task. And I must also tell many of you today that I was physically assaulted by the unions because when we tried to introduce the computers. We tried to do two things at that time. First of all, before introducing computers in the banking industry, we wanted to show that some activities can be done much more easily and much more quickly and speedily. And that is why we installed the reader sorter machines in the clearing houses where the checks were being cleared. Those were the days in Bombay when the number of checks to be cleared were of the order of about a few lakhs. That was being done previously manually by sorting out the checks, just like the mailman in the trains used to sort out the letters. That took a long time. Sometimes even one night was not enough. So we introduced the reader sorter machines, which automatically separated the checks bank-wise, branch-wise, and it could be sent to the respective banks after clearing. Then, of course, was the most important thing. And also I must say that the introduction of the reader sorter machines did not just involve in setting up the machines. We had to change the entire payment system. the checks that were being used earlier could not be used. So new type of checks had to be introduced, which had to be of a certain thickness, and the ink that is used on that has to be of a particular type, and the checks that you are now using have what we call MICR, magnetic ink character recognition, and that had to be introduced. And therefore we had to, as the Reserve Bank had to specify the nature of the paper, the nature of the ink to be used, the kind of printers to be listed, and of course the printing of the MICR digits. As somebody asked me, in what kind of a business are you? The Reserve Bank is. So we did all of those things at that time. But then we wanted to introduce a computerization in the banking industry, and that ran into problems, and people had misconceptions. They thought it will reduce the employment. It cannot do it. I wrote 2 reports on computerization, which finally gave shape to the computerization of the banking industry. But I must tell you, the first report was not called Report on Computerization. It was called Mechanization in Banking Industry. We were so afraid to use the word computers and afraid of the emotions that it might evoke. The report was called Mechanization in Banking Industry. And when machines were installed at the back office, the unions insisted that only certain number of transactions can be put through the computer, while the capacity of that machine was much higher. They said it cannot be done, and therefore, can you believe it, that we had to cripple the memory in order to ensure that only certain number of transactions are done. And we could not call them computers, and we called them ALPMs, Advanced Ledger Posting Machines. So that was the status. And then, of course, in the second report, we computerized the branches, because we wanted that anybody who comes into a branch should go to any counter and do any of the activities. Because previously there was one counter for fixed deposit, one counter for savings deposits, one counter for drafts, and so on and so forth. We wanted that anybody who walks into the branch should go to any place and then do the transaction. But fortunately, I must say, these are all in the past. The banking industry today is making use of the latest technologies. The payment system has improved considerably, and therefore we are in a position to be able to considerably improve the turnover in the banking industry. Somebody mentioned earlier about the core banking solution, which was introduced, which enables the banks to balance the accounts at the end of the day very quickly. Because balancing the book was one of the biggest problems in the banking industry at the end of the day, but that could be done very simply and very easily as a result of what was done. So I think that is, as I said, that's in the past. The computerization is catching up fast in this country. Many areas of our activities are now computerized, but there is still a much wider scope. So this is part of the work that I did, even though my main job has been in policy making. It is not really in the field of computers and communication technologies. I am happy that when India decided to launch a new set of reforms, I was part of the team which was responsible for bringing about the change. I still think 1991 is an important landmark in the post-independent economic history of the country. The country faced an acute economic crisis triggered by a severe balance of payments problem, and the crisis was converted into an opportunity to bring about fundamental changes in India's economic policy. I look back with great satisfaction what we were able to do. Somebody asked me, or some people very often ask me, did you enjoy being Governor of the Reserve Bank of India? The times at that which when we were doing that were so difficult. I said, do you enjoy? I said, did you enjoy? I said, I am enjoying in retrospect.